Hi. Hello, I'm Mr. C at Mr. C's Woodworking, and today we're going to start talking about the second step to building doors for a cabinet. Now, I'm here at the table saw. I have my 2-inch stock here that we talked about earlier. I have some of the other tools that are needed to go ahead and complete this task. But first, I'd like to go ahead and use my handy board to reiterate some of the things that we need here. Okay? So today, to make our 2 doors for our cabinet, we need 4 rails that measure 12 3/4 by 2 inches by 3/4, 4 stiles that are 13 inches by 2 inches by 3/4, and then we need 2 of our panels that are measure 9 3/4 by 12 3/4 by 1/4. Okay? So that being said, let's go ahead and start the process. I'm here at the table saw, and it's set up with, the first thing I want to do is I want to check to make sure the blade is 90 degrees to the tabletop surface. So I'm going to flip this up. I'm going to make sure the power is off, so that way I don't have a problem with it. And then what I can do also on top of that is I can go ahead and lock out, just locked out the power at the power box. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to raise the blade on the table saw and make sure this is at 90 degrees. So go ahead and take a tri-square. I'm going to slide this up to here. And like I said, the power is out. And I made sure, let me show you, that there's no gap whatsoever in here. Okay? You see there's no gap in that surface there. Now another thing I want to do is I want to make sure, after I remove that there's no gap with my miter gauge to my table saw blade. Okay? You see there's no gapping. So now I know that my miter gauge and my table saw blade are at 90 degrees. My miter gauge is at 90 degrees. So that way everything's all set. Now what I want to do is I'm going to set the height to the blade to be 1/8 of an inch above the material. So right about there, I have my blade 1/8 of an inch above the material. Now we're going to cut all the rails and stiles, the panels to our 2 doors that go to our upper cabinet. In a traditional setting, in a millworking setting, or a cabinet shop, we wouldn't be doing it this way. What we would do is we'd have a whole bunch of stock that's already been ripped to 2 inches in width, and we have just a cut list of all the different sizes that we need. We'd start making all the parts from largest to smallest. But for this demonstration purpose, I wanted to show you what the steps are for that to happen. So I have some of my material here and here, and what I want to do is I just want to cut this one end just a little bit off of that. I'm going to mark the end that is square. But the first thing I need to do now is turn the power back on. So now my power is back on. I'm going to wait for my saw stop to do all its checks to make sure that everything's fine and I get the green light so that way I can turn it on. Now the first thing I want to do is I'd like to cut the ends square to ensure that my doors turn out successfully. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for this to turn green. I make sure that it's green right now. I can turn on the power. I wait for the blade to get to full running RPM. Then I can go ahead and proceed to cut the piece. Then I'll mark it, and I'll continue cutting all the pieces until I have all of them cut at 90 degrees on one end. Now I slide this over, bring the piece back. This is the end that it cuts square. So I have that one cut square. my hand here where the board doesn't slide one way or the other as I'm putting it through the blade. Also, I'm making sure I don't have any stock left over on the other side, so that way it doesn't become a flying projectile. Now I use my knee just to turn it off because there's a paddle here. So you mark this end with an X. Now, if you remember on our board, our largest piece for length is our stile instead of 13 inches in length. So the first piece I should naturally make is the larger one, is 13 inches. I need 4 of those. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab a piece of a ruler and then measure off to make sure that I have 13 inches to my stop block. So I'm going to come over to the cabinet. I grab the steel rule, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a stop block at 13 inches exactly, so that way all my parts end up being perfect. So I'm going to loosen up the stop block. I take my ruler, put it up against the blade, I lock this in place right at 13 inches. Let me show you what that looks like. So I go ahead and I place the ruler right up against the blade, and then this goes right to 13 inches. I'll pull this out. See, there's 13. It's right at the edge of the stop block. Okay? So this will ensure that all of my parts end up being 13 inches with that stop block being set at that point. So now what I'll do is I'll remove this piece, this ruler. I'll just set this over off the side so that way it can't get in the way. I'm going to bring it down my guard, bring back my miter gauge. Now what I want to do is I want to look for grain that's similar in color, like these two pieces. Really nice straight grain, same color. So let's try and put these two together in the same door. So the end with the X goes where the stop block is. Okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and hold my pieces correctly. This is not going to bind against the fence. I can even move the fence a little bit further away. Okay, this miter gauge is not in the way. I turn it on. I wait for 4 RPM. I cut this piece. I remove this. I turn this off. Now this is going to be exactly 13 inches in length, and I need 3 more of these. And that is a stile, right? Okay. I'll stay on this side until the blade stops. So these two pieces I can make as one side of my door. This piece is a little bit too short. This is going to end up being typically used for something else within inside the project, but I'm not going to throw this out. I can probably use this for something else. That's the M with paint, that's not the X end. This end is the M with the X, that was the one that was cut square. As you can see, this is significantly longer than the fence is. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to take this and move my materials down just a little bit further to allow or to ensure that I have enough room to go ahead and cut these pieces. Okay, so this will be style number 3. So that would be the style for the second door, one of them. Style number 2. So now I have my left and right side styles completely done. Now I do have a leftover piece here that's pretty large.